Meeting will now come to order. Our roll call, Mr. Landwehr. Present. Ms. Sari. Mr. or Mrs. Livingston Matherly. Here. Mr. Granlund. Here. Mrs. Olson. Here. And Mr. Johnson. Here. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The agenda was posted throughout the district according to school board policy, published as a legal ad in the Superior Telegram, posted on the district webpage, and sent to the WNXR radio station for announcement. A meeting notice was sent to the Connection for publication. I would look for the approval of the agenda for tonight, open and executive sessions.
So moved.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the September 13th, 2021 meetings, both open and executive sessions. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. I'd like to just stop for a minute before we continue to welcome our student representatives. I believe they're out in the audience somewhere. There they are. So we have Aaron Wennerston and Thomas Shamla. And if I didn't say your names right, you'll have to let me know, okay? But thank you for being here and being willing to serve with us.
Abby Wennerston, not.
Did I say? Oh.
You said her mom.
Ah, well, that's my notes say Aaron.
Yet she won't correct.
Sorry, Abby. I am correcting that right now. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. We'll be calling on our students toward the end of the meeting. Moving on to our consent agenda for tonight, we have the August 9th, 2021 regular board meeting minutes, open and executive sessions. And next, our treasurer's report. Mr. Landwehr.
Summary of treasurer's report as of August 31st, 2021, general fund. In the general account, on August 31st, 2021, there was a balance of $5,762,582.93 in cash and investments. Since receipts of the 1st of September and not included in the August 31 balance were $23,574.29, and the disbursements from tonight's September 13th board meeting total $229,825.09. In the flexible spending account on August 31st, 2021, there was a balance of $22,854.36 in cash and investments. In the health reimbursement account on August 31st, 2021, there was a balance of $6,509.98 in cash and investments. In the debt service fund on August 31st, 2021, there was a balance of $673.24 in cash and investments. In the capital projects fund on August 31st, 2021, there was a balance of $37,095.86 in cash and investments, and a more detailed report on fund activity is included for your review in the financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Landwehr. Payment of invoices, which are included in our packet. And I'm told we have no resignations. Is that still correct?
That's a shock, I know.
Okay. Moving on then to employment.
Raymond Barkalow for the secondary math position. Mr. Barkalow has taught for 21 years, physics, chemistry, science, history, and of course math. Received his teaching credentials from Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. Deborah Johnson, part-time 4K paraeducator at Iron River Elementary School 2 days per week, Monday and Tuesday. Cheryl Jardine, part-time 4K paraeducator at NES 2 days per week, Wednesday and Thursday. Lizzie Dahl, part-time library media paraeducator at Northwestern High School. Deborah Rasmussen, part-time 5.75 hours per day special education paraeducator. Cheyenne Johnson, part-time 5.75 hours per day special education paraeducator. and Arlene McClay, bus driver. That's it for new hires.
Great. I would look for a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Second, Gail.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda tonight. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. We have a request to allow the Superior School District to cross school district boundaries to provide transportation to an open enrolled student.
You have all the documentation about that. The administration's recommendation is to not approve. Superior School District Superintendent also requests that they would not approve this as well. Yep.
Part of the concern is a precedent.
Absolutely, absolutely. As well as the hundreds of other students who are currently figuring out transportation to get to one of our stops currently in existence. That's what this student would need to do. And for 8 years hasn't been doing, but now it got caught because Superior has a new transportation director.
I make a motion to approve of not allowing Superior School District to cross school district boundaries to provide transportation for open enrolled student.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to, I have to state it right now.
To not
To
approve.
not approve. All right, crossing the school district boundaries to provide transportation to an open enrolled student. Is there any further discussion or questions?
I'm just wondering if it happened for 8 years. If it happened for 8, no. Testing.
You need to turn it on.
Hello?
There you go.
If it happened for 8 years, I guess I'm concerned that, it wasn't caught prior to that. I mean, a bus driver from another district would drive in our district, pick up a student and go, maybe they assumed that they had permission or something, but it seems awful strange that would occur
Correct.
for that many years.
I'm thankful they reached out to us,
I
though,
am,
to
and I'm
correct
grateful
that
that
error.
Lester caught saying no.
All
I
right.
guess that was just a comment then.
All right. Any further comments or questions? All right, we have a motion and a second to not allow the Superior School District to cross school district boundaries to provide transportation to an open enrolled student. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oppose the same sign? That motion carries. A resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for a temporary borrowing in an amount not to exceed $3 million pursuant to Section 67.12, parentheses 8A1 of the Wisconsin statutes. This is something we do every year.
It is.
Do you have, Mr. Stafford, anything to add?
Can you hear me? No? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right. This is a borrowing resolution. Annually, we borrow between 2 to 3 million to cover our troughs and cash flow because our expenses go out evenly for the most part, but our revenue flows are very uneven. So, for example, this year projections show that 5 months out of the 12, we would actually bottom out and be in a negative cash position if we didn't have this money on hand. We sell the money, we actually sell out on the bond market. They're called tax revenue anticipation notes. They're short-term, and projections that I've done so far are being reviewed by Ehlers, the bond consultants, and by our bonding attorneys right now. The exact amount is to be determined, probably in the neighborhood of 2.1 to 2.4 million. That would go out to bid on the week of October 4th, and then I would report on that to the board at the October 11th board meeting. So it looks like we have a lot of money right now, but it goes real fast. For example, October's October's a 3-pay month, well over $1 million in payroll. We're also in October paying out off last year's $2.1 million short term. So the money goes fast, which is why we do this.
All right.
What this does is allows me to set the dollar amount with the bonding attorney and with the bond consultants and actually go out to bid to the markets.
Is this one, am I on now? Do we need to take a vote on this one or
Oh,
after
yes.
the motion, or, okay?
Yep. Mhm.
This is, as in years past, Paul, this is a, like it says, not to exceed. So you determine how much we need and you take a loan out based on what you feel the need is going to be.
That is
That's
correct.
correct?
That's approved by the bonding attorney and by our consultants.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Gail makes a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the issuance and establish parameters, or I guess a parameter not to exceed $3 million for temporary borrowing. We will take a roll call vote on this one. Is there any further questions or discussions? Hearing none. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Landwehr?
Yes.
Ms. Sari?
Yes.
Mrs. Livingston Matherly?
Yes.
Mr. Granlund?
Yes.
Mrs. Olson?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Agenda item 6, board member request to repeal the August 9th, 2021 Board of Education decision for making face masks coverings optional for students and staff in grades pre-K through 12. The board members' amended recommendation would be for students and staff in grades pre-K through 6 would be required to wear a face mask or covering. As we have opened up for public comments for this agenda item, the board will have its discussion, and then the public is allowed to address the board on this item. We will not entertain a motion until we have heard from the public. The board can begin discussion now.
I can start if you want. I can just kind of start by bringing us up to speed. Last month, at our board meeting, the majority of the board voted for masks to be optional. And then at that time, the discussion was, if we're seeing some change, we can always relook at it and pivot accordingly. We were, I believe, moderate at the time that we met for the meeting. We've since moved into high risk and kind of stayed there for several weeks. So with that said, might not be a bad idea for us to take another look. We do have, of course, we've got elementary school in Bayfield and Douglas County, and we have 2 schools that have near us that have closed down due to some COVID cases. So it's something that I think we want to at the very least look at. I know with the majority of the board not necessarily wanting to go with the CDC guidelines, my ask then would be, is there at least something in the spirit of compromise that we could look at that could be some added layers of protection that maybe the majority of the board would be okay with, since I know that that may be the only way that we will be able to get some added layers of protection through. So my suggestion would be that we try really hard tonight to work as a team, and we try to see if we can maybe come up with some added protective barriers or some options that we can look at to keep our kids safe. I know there's 2 things we all want here. We want to make sure that we keep our schools open. We don't want to have to close down like some other schools have had to do already. And we want to keep our kids and our community safe and healthy. So if we could maybe find a way where we could all kind of agree on something, that would be really, really awesome.
Mr. Landwehr?
I believe one of those schools that shut down had 1 positive case. from a staff member, and then they closed, I believe, for 2 weeks, if my information is correct. A lot of emails, we have all gotten a lot of emails, and I guess I'm going to direct this more toward you, Dana. The fact that you're asked from pre-K through 6, and I guess a bunch of things here. One, CDC is saying that, or is it the FDA? I think it's the FDA saying at age 12 and up, you have the opportunity to receive a vaccine. 6th grade is where you turn from 11 to 12. So asking for the entire 6th grade, are you at 12 years old going to say we can remove that? The middle school is a mixed grade, 6, 7, and 8, so you're going to have 30% of that school masked, and the other 60% aren't, or 33% and 66%, but are not then masked. That doesn't seem necessarily consistent for me. And because they're saying at 12 years old and above, you have the opportunity to receive a vaccine, doesn't mean you have to have it, and then saying at 6th grade, once you hit 7th grade, whether you're vaccinated or not, you don't have to. So I guess I'm just looking for some
Sure.
clarification from your
Yeah, I can clarify
side.
that for you. So I think the thought process was that when you start getting beyond 6th grade, they have the opportunity to be vaccinated should they and their parents so choose to vaccinate them, whereas that opportunity is not available for under. Hopefully that's going to change in a couple months because they're talking about that, but as of right now, it's not available. 6th grade, then, if we were to try to put that through, it would be all of 6th grade, because you would have such a mingling of 11 and 12-year-olds that all next to each other in the same classes that it would just be 6th grade and under. But I think that what I did say, or what I'm hoping can happen tonight, because I'm also a realist, and I realize that the majority of the board does not necessarily want to look at or may not want to look at masking. So this is why I'm saying, can we work as a team and come up with some ideas on what we can add for additional safety protocols due to the fact that we've moved into high risk?
I think one of the things working as a team is if we set numbers, if we set certain things, that you can do that. But I've never turned down a phone call from Dr. Croney. She's called whenever something's happened, if she has to take action, if she had to cut some school out for, whatever reason. We are all available on a minute's notice, it seems like, or on a daily notice. We can have a quick meeting. So if things did go up and you didn't have the teachers, or you had lots of things, we could get more information fairly quickly just from you. So I think that's kind of the teamwork that I see happening, and I like it. It seems like it works.
Excuse me, we did say, and Dan is correct, we did say that if we could pivot, we made a decision we could pivot if things changed. And I'm not sure what color we're in, but the numbers is what I've been looking at. And is it true that we have one active case in
One
our-
active case
And I don't think that justifies.
in the whole district.
In my opinion, doesn't justify changing from optional to mandatory masks, so just.
Nancy? I think, Mike, that's fine, but that really wasn't one of my requests. My request was, can we work as a team and think of possibly some additional protective layers? Or is what you're saying is you're perfectly fine with where we're at and you don't feel we need any protective layers? Just so I can be clear of where you're at.
I guess I was more referring to the item on the agenda.
Yeah, so this is our discussion time to discuss that and talk about what we might be able to do as options.
Do you have some suggestions?
Well, we could start with having guidelines. We could start with when we have a percentage of cases or when we have a percentage of a situation, we do the following. I believe last month, that was the question that was posed, is it's kind of a little bit vague to say we're just going to look at things if they change. Well, what does change mean? I think that was asked. Do you mean so many cases? Do you mean so many positive cases? Do you mean so many illnesses? Right now, we have the CDC and both public health departments telling us that they recommend indoor masking. If we're not going to follow the CDC and we're not going to follow both of our public health departments who just emailed us today with their stand on things, is there something that as a board we could come to an agreement on? Or is it just, we're not going to do this or we aren't? This is the time for us to talk and open up some things. I mean, I suppose I could take over and run the whole show, but I mean, I'm really open to hearing what suggestions might be.
Did you receive what was sent to you last week?
I believe you sent some where
chart.
you had worked with the administrative board to work on how many cases per school could, if you were found to have so many cases positive per school, you could look at, and I need clarity on this, you would look at then masking
Correct.
for 2 weeks while they're in,
Yes.
or you would look at going virtual. I wasn't sure
No,
what you
that
had.
was for
Masking.
Masking.
Okay.
So that you were asking for
That
some
would
kind of-
definitely be something. That would be at least some direction for folks, so that they would know if we reach a certain amount of number, we are going to do the following safety protocol. That is really a lot better than saying, we'll look at change if need be, because there's no direction there. We need something. We
and
need
that-
something.
And that
And
was,
and like I said, if we're not, if the majority of the board does not want to follow CDC guidelines, then let's look at what are you willing to, is there anything you are willing to look at, as of right now, to build on the protective layers?
that was to get at your specific question. And you weren't the only board member who had that question of what is the line? What is the threshold? That's why I pulled the admin team together, and they were comfortable unanimously with the suggestion of the threshold they shared with you. And we also put a hard copy of that at your board spot as well.
So I guess the question to ask would be, did everybody take a look at that, and does anybody have a problem with that? Because I think we know I'm not going to have a problem with it. I'm going to welcome anything you guys are willing, any bone you guys are willing to throw me, I'm going to take.
I guess in restless nights, my wife would attest to that I haven't been sleeping well. But I look at this whole thing, and my opinion has not changed from the summer prior to school last year. I feel personally that I got elected on the board to do a number of things. Find a proper curriculum that I think instills quality education in all of the students pre-K through 12. To find and approve proper busing, staffing, wages, retirement plan, which we've been able to, all the stuff that I've been able to be part of and worked on for the last 4 years. I felt that's my responsibility as a board member. At the same time, it's not my responsibility, and I felt this from the very beginning, it's not my responsibility to tell any parent whether or not their kids should have keen boots on in the wintertime, whether they should do anything. It's not my job as a board member to parent for kids. I understand. I understand what you're asking for, and I understand wanting to have some layer of protection. I completely understand your feelings on that. But at the same time, I don't want to impose my feeling onto anyone else. And by me feeling that way, allowing the parents and the families and the staff and the employees to have the choice to A, get a vaccine if they so choose, B, put their students in a mask or 2 masks or a helmet. I don't particularly care what they want to put on their kids. If that's what they feel the level of protection is, I think all of us have had the conversation. For every argument on the right, there's one on the left. For every argument for masks, there's one against. For every argument for whether this is deadly for children or not, it's the same. You're going to find an equal amount on both sides. So I don't think you're necessarily ever going to find a definitive answer based on what you're looking for. And I think trying to come together, for as admirable as I think it is, I don't think there's a clear way to come up with what everybody's on the side of wanting masks to find as a reasonable thing, only because these kids, I have a 3rd grader, an 8th grader, and an 11th grader. They're going to get off of the vehicle that my oldest son is going to drop them off in all on the morning. My daughter then would get out, put a mask on, go to school, get out, get in the same vehicle with nobody, considering last year we had one, correct me if I'm wrong, one positive transmission case within the district.
Out of 743.
Out of 7, quarantine.
Quarantine.
So, and again, I know there's probably going to be an argument that's going to say masks helped in that fashion, and I'm not educated enough to argue against that. But I'm also seeing these numbers based on what Douglas County has provided, finding out that they have, the WHO has already named all of the variants going forward. They're using the Greek alphabet, in case anybody didn't know. It started with Alpha, then Beta. I don't think there's a C in the Greek alphabet. Now they're on Delta. The Alpha variant last year, they said, was more contagious and more deadly than the Delta variant, which is being said. Now again, I'm not an educated person in that fashion to be able to read all that stuff properly, and I know we're going to get inundated with a lot of stuff here in a little bit, but again, I don't feel it's my responsibility as an elected official to parent for other people. At the same time, it's my job to represent the public, represent the community, and in my case, I feel that the majority of the community, the majority of the people that voted for us are wanting to keep what we provided in September. So
Okay.
that's my 2 bits.
Yeah, I think, I certainly understand what you're saying about your opinion. I think that I couldn't agree with you more. I personally am not qualified. I am not qualified to make decisions about diseases and infections and viruses. I am not a specialist. I look to the CDC for that. I look to the public health departments. I'm not going to base my decision on my opinion, because if you want my opinion, I think these things suck. I have to put it down just so you can hear me. But I am basing my choice on this, which is not a popular one. I'm not looking for a fan club. I am simply not qualified to make the decision for the safety of children, because I don't specialize in diseases. I don't specialize in viruses or how they spread. I have no idea about any of that. I turn to the CDC for that. What does the CDC tell us? It's very clear. There is no doubt there. We all know what they tell us. We all know what the public health departments are telling us. Yes, we can go back and forth on cases. Are we even hearing about all the cases? I don't know. I've heard rumors that there were more cases. I've heard all sorts of things. I don't know what's true and what isn't. All I'm saying is, can we please look at some type of barrier to mitigate and minimize our spreading of something and our risk of having to close down? Maybe it's what was suggested here with us saying, here's flat numbers. When we get to these numbers, then we mask up until we get through quarantine. Maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, I was hoping that in the spirit of, compromise and working together, we could maybe come up with some things. Does anybody have any ideas?
I have a couple comments. I've got 3 points. Number one, the CDC, science doesn't change. It's only our perception that changes. Science is what science is. And CDC has changed many times. So I would like to know, what was science? Is it science before, or is it science now? The fact of the matter is, when we get down to basic science, I mean real basic science, we're designed to breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. And if we mix the two, we're going to get sick. And I'm going to give you an example. I've got a granddaughter last year that had problems And she had to go to the ER department. I'm not going to go into the gory details of this, but she's 9 years old, and she did what the adults around her told her to do. And she wore a mask, and she wore it well. The fact is, she was having neurological issues happening to her personally because of this. We didn't know it. When she gets there, she's got low oxygen levels and high carbon dioxide levels. Well, anybody can Google that and find out that that can cause long-term damage, it can cause short-term damage, it can cause a lot of problems. So that's a personal reason why kids need to be able to breathe. I mean, if they're in close quarters, that's maybe a different thing. But the last point I'd like to make is a little bit of what Adam said. We were elected in this area not to represent the CDC, not to represent, whatever, but we are representing the people. Now, I've heard over the last month, and you've all heard, a few people make a lot of noise, and that noise was just loud by a few people. But those few people's loud noise doesn't override the number of people that have a different opinion. And if we think that once we get elected to this board, we all of a sudden become smarter than everybody out there or everybody, that elected us, we're wrong. I can prove that we're not smarter because we ran for the board and they didn't. So I can prove that they're smarter than us. That's my point.
Well, I apologize to Dan if you thought I maybe disrespected you, but maybe my point, it was a point of order more than anything, because the agenda item is regarding the wearing of the masks and the mitigation procedures. I don't see.
I did check with the attorney, asked, are we allowed to share the chart that the admin team came forward with for suggestions? I said it does go along with the concept of masks, because the question is, well, when is it okay for masks? He said we're not allowed to talk about the middle school or the high school numbers, but the board could approve or vary what was given to you, modify it in any way, shape, or form you wish for a pre-K through 6, because that is on the agenda. So the mitigation chart that you received, that's this one, okay? That would be allowable for a conversation for the NES and IRES for certain, because that would take you pre-K through 5. And for the NMS one, it could only go through grade 6. And so it would have to be separated out then. We'd have to do a new recalculation for a grade 6 one, but that was what was suggested. So that is okay.
I just am reminded, or remind all of us, that we do have many protocols in place, including, frequent hand washing with soap and water whenever possible, and then the hand sanitizer, cleaning of surfaces, social distancing as much as possible in our classrooms. And so we've barely had any days to test this protocol to see how efficient it is. I mean, so far, we've had 0 students, is that correct?
We've had, for the first 2 weeks, we had 1 staff member, 1 student who contracted it prior to even coming to school.
Right.
That's all done. They're already back 2 weeks. And now we
Okay.
have 1 positive case.
So anyway, I'm just saying that we do have protocols. It's not like we're just open the door to everything. So we do have some protections in place that we will, I would encourage our staff to be very vigilant with, as we know those are things that work.
And I want to remind parents that if their child has symptoms, keep them home. I mean, that's a big one.
That is a very big
So
one.
that's
And
on you.
that is in our plan as well. Staff and students stay home when they're sick, get tested.
I can appreciate this, what do you call it, mitigation plan?
Mitigation chart.
Mitigation chart. I can appreciate that, because I would, for, as much as I am against putting masks on, I would definitely be the devil's advocate into when are they coming back off. So if there's a line drawn, I need it on both ways personally.
And that
in order to
chart
make sure.
does
It
say-
does do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
agree
it
with,
says
personally,
14
I don't.
days.
What's that, Dana?
It says 2 weeks. You would have to keep them on if there were, so like if NES had 30 active cases, you would do it for the 2 weeks, which would be the, what do you call it?
Well, I think it said 5%. So whether that population number goes up or down, it's going to determine that 5%. I'm just not comfortable with 5%, but the
What are you comfortable with?
100. Yeah, but I mean, with that, and that's just, I guess that's my personal opinion, but with that being the case, I don't, we decided, because we were forced to have to close in, was it October of last year?
No, November.
November of last year for staffing issues, because we ended up having the close contact quarantine. And there were so many staff and students that were removed from school, not because they had COVID, but because they were close contact quarantine. The fact that that part of the plan from last year is not instilled this year, because the close contact quarantine protocols that were in place last year are not in place this year, I personally don't see that we're going to have a staffing problem. Based on current numbers from Douglas and Bayfield counties that we have, that I don't think that that's going to necessarily be an issue. At the same time, I am, now I lost it. I should write more down. I apologize. When I come back to it, I'll get to it.
So
But I
were you
guess,
saying, just to kind of clarify then, so that we all can gather what you're saying, so you were saying if there was like, say, whatever it is, 30 active cases, and we feel, okay, we need to mask up, until we can you're saying you wouldn't want the unmasking until it was down 100%? You said you didn't like the 5%. You
No,
wanted
I
to see
I
100%.
was being facetious. I don't want masks on at all, is what I was saying. So I apologize for that. No, what I'm saying is I don't think 5% is and I got my thought back. When a number of years ago, Nancy could probably attest to this, Dr. Croney, Sherry could probably attest to this as well. I remember, well, it's probably been 3 years ago now, when flu season went through, there was hundreds of kids missing from school. Not just one school, but district-wide. A couple hundred, 300 kids on any particular day. At that point, now that was obviously all pre-COVID. So that was pre a mask, conversations, pre any of that stuff. But not once during any of that, I think, did anything ever get shut down, at least while I've never had any of my students here. So nothing has ever been shut down. I do understand the fact that there's hand washing done probably to a significant level, much more significant level than there ever was prior to, which I think is a good thing. People being more cautious as to what they're doing. Parents keeping their kids home when they're feeling sick or ill. Prior to all this, pop a couple ibuprofen and go to school, and at noon, when your kid's puking, you wonder why. I mean, that's a reality of what it was historically. I think a lot of that stuff has changed in the fact, when you talk about safety protocols and stuff, I think the fact that we're allowing parents and we're relaying to parents and families, if your kids have any of these symptoms, they need to stay home, which is not something that was done prior to. So I think that is step one. Like Nancy said, all of the hand washing that's been done, that's also something else. The fact that last year we had one confirmed transmission in the district year long, I think that also tells us that there were a lot of things that were done that made a lot of sense to protect everyone. And I don't think that a mask.
But you would be comfortable with the chart?
I would be comfortable with something, not 5%.
So
I'm
you're
going to want.
saying lower or higher?
Well, only because you take NES, 594 humans in the school, it says. So 5% is 30. Well, you have, Brad, maybe you can tell me, how many classrooms are in NES? So 26?
26.
So you've got 26 classrooms. I mean, you're talking 1.2 humans per classroom, if you look at it in that fashion. Nowhere has you ever said, we need to close something because we have a sick student out of a classroom.
Is there a
Given-
number you'd
given
be
there's-
comfortable
this
with
is-
then? Could we come up with a number so that maybe we might have some options for tonight? Is there a number you'd be comfortable with?
Would you be comfortable with 2? I mean, would you be comfortable
Well, the
with doubling?
percentage- I would
So it'd
be-
10% rather than 5?
I would think, well, like I said, I was being facetious, but I guess if I'm doing it, I'm going to do it so it's never going to get hit. So 50%, which everybody may say is unrealistic, which may very well happen. And it's never going to happen, at least, well, you can't ever say never, because the chart here from Douglas County last year, November, there were 1,256 positive cases of COVID in the county on 44,000 people. It doesn't say how many of those on this chart were under the age of 18 or anything of the sort. And we're talking right now under the age of 12 or under the age of 13, maybe it's 12 and under. So I just, based on these numbers, have dropped from November of last year, and they have been relatively consistent, 230 in April. Otherwise, every month after that has been under 150s countywide. And there was one of the emails that we had gotten that I thought was worded quite, there was like 0.01% had COVID last week in the county, and so that meant 99.99% didn't. That's how I'm looking at it. I guess I'm looking at it from a positive fashion, as this many people didn't have it.
Okay, so you're saying, I just want to make sure we're all getting this, so masks, okay, if you get up to the percentage, are you saying, you're saying the percentage would need to be 50%
Yeah,
of the total population before masking was for 2
That's
weeks?
what
Is
I'm
that what you're saying?
saying, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're saying, if you've got 594 people, you were saying 260 some would need to be positive for COVID before we'd look at masking for 2 weeks?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that's what you're saying.
I have a question. This guidelines that you presented us, we haven't had a lot of time to look at it, of course, but since we're not an imminent, in my opinion, not an imminent issue and danger at the elementary school, and this does not include, we can't discuss the NMS or in the high school. Can we bring this up next month?
You can do whatever you wish to do. I was bringing it forward in a spirit of teamwork, of trying to come up with something that might be comfortable for the board.
Then we could look at it
Right,
district-wide
because
Then we
rather
could look at
than
all
just
the schools.
K through 12. correct.
piecemeal like tonight
Because even
would
if we
be.
did do something tonight, we'd revisit the high school and middle school.
I'd like to say something too, please.
Go ahead, Gail.
I do believe, from listening and reading all of the emails and such, I was one of them that asked what our admin team would be, something that we could say, when we could require having face masks, and go by school. And, I know that we didn't have that many last year, and then a lot of it was, 2 weeks because they were exposed to or they had been close proximity. However, I do think we need to put some kind of a guideline like this for the unvaccinated children in our elementary grades. And 5%, I don't know, then let's figure 7%. But I think we do have to name some kind of a cutoff. And right now, there's a mandate for the buses for them to wear face masks. And they're not all wearing face masks on the bus. So how can we enforce it on the buses if we can't? I do think we should highly recommend, as the CDC from both Bayfield County and Douglas County have stated, that we should highly recommend wearing face masks in those grades 4K through 6th grade, where if those children are not vaccinated. And finding some kind of a percentage rate for NES, Iron River Elementary, middle school, and high school, I don't think it's that much for us to name if we have so many active cases that, it should be said that we need to keep our kids safe by having them wear face masks.
I guess my point about putting this part of it to next month's agenda is that we probably have more than two sides to the issue now, and we're far apart. And and also, if it did exceed the threshold prior to next month's meeting, you do have the ability to call a special meeting within 2 hours,
Absolutely.
if it would.
Yes, correct.
So that's what I would suggest. This part of the
What would be the threshold where she would call us? Are you saying the one
She
that
could
she's
use-
currently
they could
has?
use that threshold. We would visit it next month, but if they wanted, if the administration wanted to, they could use that threshold to call a meeting. But, so I'd suggest this part of it, and it wasn't really posted on our agenda.
It
Even though-
became part of problem solving is what it
Right,
became.
okay.
Yeah.
Mrs. Olson, did you want?
Yes. Part of the problem solving.
I know the email that was sent out to us today from the Douglas County nurse stated that we should be looking at other factors other than what's just in our building, like what's in our community. And I know we're not a Florida, we're not a Texas. I kind of like what Ashland has done, where they're looking at cases in the community and deciding on a week-to-week basis based on the rates that they have locally. I don't know if that's anything that would work for us, but just something to think about.
The thing that helps us is we're not as dense as a lot of those other areas.
That's true. So I'm hearing a suggestion that this chart that we have, again, what are we calling it?
Mitigation chart?
Mitigation chart. Okay, I'm going to write that down. Is something that maybe we don't have to decide tonight, but can agree to look at the next meeting.
Posted for pre-K through 12.
Give us a little more time to think about this. And then
If you want some
maybe be able to
scenarios
look
of
at the
other
whole
pers-
district as opposed to just looking at elementary right now. So what are our feelings on that?
I guess my opinion is, I don't want to keep kicking the can down the thing. I don't, as I said, Dana, I am not opposed to, obviously my numbers are completely different than I think what other people are going to want, but I'm not opposed to something like this, if that's the case. But I don't think we need to do anything until this becomes an issue. And I say that because if everybody were to say they're happy with 5% hypothetically, that means we have any one of these schools, we have numbers here now that are telling us whether we need to get there. So currently, we have one active case in the district. If we essentially instruct Dr. Croney and administration to say, I want you to use this as a guideline, and if we're seeing that it's creeping onto this, we need to do something. But honestly, I don't see this happening. So to end up having to put something in place, I think right now is not needed, only because we haven't seen squat essentially with it. We've had multiple football games, what they say, Camp Randall down in Madison had 80,000 people in it. I'm sure it's just, I don't see that these numbers that we're ever going to reach them. If we do, I guess then maybe that's something we need to look at. But I don't think we need to do anything until, and I'm not saying, if we get a phone call saying, hey, we're at 35 cases, we got to do something. I think if you were to say, hey, we got 10 at the elementary school, we got to look at this. But if that doesn't happen, why do we even have to have the conversation? And I don't want to, we got, I don't know, 150 people sitting here. They don't need to come back every single month to do this. I don't want to keep kicking the can, because even if we did say tonight, something were to get said where we're going to implement a pre-K through 6, that doesn't give anybody out there, in my opinion, because it sure doesn't give me any sense of relief knowing that I got to send my third grader to school, but then next month I got to deal with my 8th grader and my 12th grader, and we got to do this all over again. That's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily want a special meeting. I don't want anything. I just don't think this is needed. We have allowed all of last year, we gave Dr. Croney the authority to say, hey, I can't staff, I can't do this, we got to get something addressed here. I don't see why this can't be any different without having to do anything like this. Leave it as it is and allow this to be a template for Dr. Croney and admin to run the schools, teach our children, teach our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I'm sure, out there. Yeah, I wasn't pointing at you. But that's what I'm saying. I just don't want this to continue over and over and over again. That's what I'm saying.
I want to add to that also. I don't think this would be brought up here today if there weren't a few very loud and boisterous people. I don't think we would be talking about it, but there was pressure put on in ways that there probably shouldn't have been. I promise we will be here every month doing this if it did go the other way, because there's loud people on the other side too, and they'll be loud, and we'll be here every 30 days, and those kids will be putting them on for 30 days, and they'll be taking them off for 30 days, and it'll be going back and forth. So I don't want to kick the can down the road either.
So am I hearing you in saying you'd like this to be a guideline, or just not do anything with this at all?
Well, I don't want to do anything with it at all. I don't. But what I am saying is, somebody other than me can say, Dr. Croney, I would like you to take this and use it as, are we seeing anything remotely close to this? If that's the case, we need to bring it up at a board meeting. We're going to be able to do this. And if that means it's December, January 2026, whatever. I just don't think it needs to be done now. I don't think voting on anything now and then having to do it again next month or the next month, like Brian said, it's too much. The stress on the kids, the stress on myself,
Yeah,
everything, it's just
I
not,
agree with
right.
that. I agree with that.
And I think that is looking out for the health of the kids, keeping the stress off of their backs. Let them be kids. That's what they want to be.
Well, I still need direction with what we want to do with this. I still need direction from what we want to do with this, if we want to just table it for now.
It makes sense to table it. It makes sense to discuss it in its entirety. I think more scenarios I'm hearing. Okay, you want one at 50%. I've heard someone else want one at 7%. So we do one at 10%. We do, and let you take a look at all of them.
I guess no matter what way the vote goes tonight, I agree. I don't want to keep rehashing this unless it becomes an issue where we have to, and I just kind of like this done tonight, unless it gets to the point where we do have to revisit because of the numbers increasing. And again, no matter what side, because I'm probably not on the side that the most of you are on, but I'm tired of it too. So I just would like this to be done, and I would like to vote on it tonight, and then just knowing that, if it goes which way it goes, I'm fine with that, but that we have that in place so we can come back to it if necessary.
Normally, you have a board policy that says the majority vote, you cannot re-bring it up unless someone from the majority vote requests that it be brought up. We didn't do that this time. We made it very, very clear that any board member, no matter what side you were on, could come forward and say, I think something's changed. I think we should revisit this. And we did. But the board could choose to say, however the majority ends up going tonight, we don't revisit this unless someone from the majority has changed his or her mind, because that would potentially change a vote. That's how it normally goes with any type of board.
And is
board
this
vote.
what you're referring to, is the chart?
I'm sorry?
Is what you're referring to is deciding
No,
on
I'm
whether or not
talking
we're going to have
about
a
the-
chart?
I was
In
directly
general.
speaking to Sherry's comment and the others' comments of not wanting to keep revisiting this, keep revisiting it. So if it turned out tonight that it was going to be one way, then that's the majority. Then someone from, who voted that way would be the only ones that could revisit this, unless something from administration, like we had last November, came forward and I said, sorry, guys, I got to pull you together. We have an issue.
Or we have
Yeah, why
high
did-
number of cases, or we
Enough
have a-
cases that, correct.
And why did we change that this time from the normal
We
board
changed
policy?
it. You would have been remote that time. We had conversations saying, because there was uncertainty and wondering, how is the year going to start? And I wanted to make sure the board felt empowered that, okay, we're going to start it this way and see how it goes. But anyone on the board, even if they voted in the minority, could still feel empowered saying, all right, if something changes, you've got the same power as, Dana or Sherry to say, we need to revisit it.
Right. So what am I hearing from the board? Are we going back to the normal policy, or are we going to
I'd
continue
like
with
to know
this?
that. I would like to know that.
Because I don't care what the vote is, it can be on, peanuts in the classroom or whatever. Whoever is in the minority will always
Want to revisit.
want to revisit it for the chance that they could get somebody to come over the other side. So we can't go down that road.
No,
I don't
but it was
think,
only on this topic because it was so volatile.
on this topic for that month, and then we're back.
I think what the problem was is that, to be more accurate, last month when we met and the board, the majority voted for masking to be optional, there was discussion at that point with the majority of, look, right now we're in we're in moderate level. We feel comfortable. If things change, we can relook at it and we can pivot accordingly. At that point, a question was asked, okay, what do you want as change? What do you want as criteria if things change and we're going to repivot? What is that? Nobody had an answer. Nobody said, well, if it's this many cases, then we'll come back. If it moves from moderate to high risk, we'll come back. It was quiet. So you would assume when you move from moderate level of risk to high risk, you would probably look at, is there anything more we need to do to mitigate spread or, anything like that with the kids? So what I'm thinking tonight is, I think that just from the discussion, it's pretty clear. We're struggling to even decide if we're going to put through a chart. So I don't know that it's even going to be addressed tonight because we just aren't. I guess my hope was that we could kind of work as a team and devise some ideas that we could maybe put through, but it's not the case. So let's just move forward.
If there's no further discussion right now, I will open this up to the public here shortly.
Is that's something that we're not going to vote on then, the chart that?
I'm fine with this being used as a guideline. If we're seeing more cases in the schools and we're approaching these numbers or whatever percentage, but see, we have to decide a percentage right now then, if we're going to actually use this.
Well, I don't think you have to decide. We can, but I don't, did we ever last year, in the height of this, in November of 2020, when there were 1,256 cases in Douglas County, did we ever get 30 positive cases at NES at any given time?
Kristen,
Did we have 16 at MS or
did we
23
have
at the high
60
school?
at NMS? No.
No. No,
Oh,
so,
we have got it for 5 at IRES. Did we ever get to 5? I can't hear you. Not within a 2-week period.
so
Okay.
I guess, last year we empowered you to say, hey, we got to close the school for XYZ.
Correct.
We've empowered you to say, we got to close the school because we got a bunch of snow, because of ice, or, a refinery blows up, all that stuff. The fact that these numbers are here and we never met them last year, I don't see why we would have to vote on something that we didn't hit last year when the Alpha variant was out there, which everything that I've read out there said that that was a more contagious and a more deadly variant than the Delta that's currently out there. I'm sure somebody will correct me, but that being the case, I don't see why we would have to vote on something if we never made it there last year. We could continue to say, hey, these are the guidelines that we're wanting to use. If it gets to that point, I think this room needs to be full again for us to vote on that. But I think there's an opportunity for us to be able to say, here you go, use it.
Guidelines.
We get there, let's sit down and have a chat about it. And if we have to vote about something at that point, we can. But the fact that it hasn't gotten there
Right.
ever for us, I don't see why we need to put the threshold in right now.
Okay, so this is just the guidelines then? These are the guidelines then that will just kind of stay there if things do,
Is that the consensus of the board that this could act right now as guidelines?
Yeah, so it would be guidelines for Dr. Crony to use when figuring out whether or
I'm
not.
having a hard time
It
understanding.
wouldn't be for her to say, we're going to mask, it would be for her to call us
To
together.
decide that we
Is
need
that
to-
right?
I was asking if we reached this, I would have the authority to say we need to have masks. I'm hearing differently. That means I have the authority to call a special board meeting.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what I
I'm
think
saying.
I heard.
I'm saying you do not have, I don't mean to be rude, you do
No,
not
and I
have-
don't take it
you do
rudely.
not- okay.
I'm just trying to understand the parameters of the full board, not just you.
Right. What I'm proposing, I guess, on this is that you do not have the authority to put masks on anybody
Right.
without calling a board meeting
Right.
and having us do that.
I hear you.
Okay. Is that the consensus, though, that this would be guidelines? I'm seeing heads nodding. Okay, is that okay if we just have a consensus of the board? All right, anything else before we move along?
So the consensus of the board was what? I didn't get all the,
Let me repeat it so that I make sure I've got it.
sure.
The consensus of the board is that we would use the mitigation chart as a
Okay.
guideline. If we were to get to that threshold in any building, I would call our board president and request that we have a special board meeting. We would post it for 2 hours and meet right away so that we are not going against that mitigation guideline. But then the board would make the decision if we're going to use that mitigation guideline and truly indeed have masks for that school or not have masks for the school.
Okay.
That's-
Thank you.
Yep, that's what I was hearing.
All right. The Board of Education realizes this is a volatile subject around the state and country. John Ashley, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, released a statement. We've become increasingly alarmed at the recent reports of personal threats of violence and harassment directed at school board members across the state. Civil disagreement and protest are cornerstones of our democracy, but attempts to intimidate school board members and physically disrupt school board proceedings are not acceptable. Being passionate about the well-being of our children is commendable, and the public is welcome to voice displeasure or disagreement with their school boards. However, threatening to physically harm school board members or their family members, shouting profanities during school board meetings, or attempting to prevent school boards from executing their constitutional governing role crosses a line and should not be tolerated by our communities. We are calling for our school board meetings to be held in a civil, respectful manner. I would like to entertain a motion and vote on the ground rules for the public comments portion of this agenda item. Number 1, each person should use the microphone and not call out from their seat. Number 2, each person should state his or her name and the municipality in which they reside. Number 3, each person who wishes to comment has 3 minutes to speak. If the 3 minutes is over and the person is still speaking, they will be notified that the time is up and the microphone will be shut off. Number 4, no person can speak more than once. Number 5, name calling to anyone or any other disruption, including shouting out during someone else's address to the board, will not be tolerated. The meeting will stop and the person will be asked to leave. Number 6, all statements made tonight must be to the full Board of Education, not to individual board members, staff, or other participants in attendance. I would need a motion, a second, and a roll call.
I move that we adopt those
Ground rules.
ground rules.
I'll second it, but I do have a question. When people state their name and their community or township, I believe our normal rules are that if someone has an interest in the agenda item, they can speak. Does that mean they have to be a resident? Or are you implying that they have to be a township
I
resident?
don't know. Do they have to be a resident?
It's your ground rules. You are making
I don't think
changes
it
to
matters.
your current policy.
They don't have to.
So what is the answer? What is?
Well, we're not saying they have to be a resident,
Nope.
I don't believe so.
so
All right. So we had a motion. Did I have a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the ground rules as I read them. I'll take a roll call. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Landwehr?
Yes.
Ms. Sari?
Yes.
Mrs. Livingston Matherly?
Yes.
Mr. Granlund? Mrs. Olson? And I vote yes. A public comment period will be held at this time to listen to community members who would like to address the board on the use of face masks coverings for grades pre-K through 6. Comments should be focused on the agenda item currently in discussion. The comment portion of this agenda item will conclude after 1 hour. A vote by the Board of Education will be taken once the public comment portion has concluded. And now we shall begin.
My name is Mark Ingram. I live in Poplar. I have children in kindergarten, 2nd, 4th, and 6th grade. I would suggest that when considering the issue of masking children, the board not look at infection rates, whether in the county, the state, or the school. And the reason being that children grades K through 6 are fundamentally different with regards to COVID. We know that children generally who contract COVID have very mild or even no symptoms at all. If you look at the Wisconsin Department of Health website, in the last year and a half, 0 children less than 10 years old have died. Worldwide, the mortality rate is 0.17 per 100,000. What does that mean? That means COVID is less of a death risk to our children than influenza. It means that driving is 8 times more deadly than COVID. Your child is more likely to die driving to school than by contracting COVID at school. The second question is, do children significantly contribute to the spread of COVID? The American Pediatrics Academy has said no. Children less than 16 years old do not significantly contribute to COVID. And the reason for that is their bodies are not producing enough of the virus. They're not symptomatic. They're not spreading it. There have not been super spreader events from small children in schools, in churches, in after-school programs, in daycares. It has not happened. The third question is, does masking in schools decrease transmission? Last May, the CDC in their school reopening plan looked at this issue. They tried to find studies that showed that there was a difference between schools that had mandatory masking and schools that didn't. And they did find studies that compared them, but there was no statistical difference in any study on schools that mandated masking. The reason being is that children do not produce enough virus to generally be contagious. So you may ask, well, it makes sense that masking would reduce transmission, and that may be so. But with any risk and reduction strategy, there's always a cost. And as you've heard tonight, the cost is large. When our children attend school, they aren't just learning information, they're developing. They're developing socially, relationally, emotionally, friendships are being made, and those things are inhibited by masks. And the last question we need to ask is, this data is largely from the last year. Are the new variants of COVID different? Does this new, more contagious virus represent a greater threat to our children? CDC report from earlier this month says no. Even though the virus may be more contagious, it is not having more serious effects on children. And the whole continent of Europe is about 3 months ahead of us with the variant. And by and large, their schools are open. And in the UK, Norway, Sweden, Finland, young children are not masking, and the disease is not being spread. Personally, my family in the past has homeschooled, and I think my wife does a great job of that. But we want our children here. We want our children here to build relationships with faculty and staff and to make friends and to love them. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Fouts, and I live in Amnicon Township. I trust the board that you have received the letter that I sent via email. I am not going to rehash that because you had opportunity to read that. But I would also like to add that anecdotal evidence for schools in our area do not show that masks are effective. If you look at a neighboring school district, I don't know if I'm not supposed to say what it is, but I will say South Shore, the kindergarten and 8th through 12th grades are currently shut down. They have had a mask mandate in place for 100% of all students and staff inside buildings. If masks work, why aren't they working? In Ashland, the football team is quarantined. They have a mask mandate in place where students and staff have to wear masks indoors. If masks work, why aren't they working? So I would argue that no matter what the threshold is, that masks are not ever appropriate to put on the youngest of our children. We have chosen, my husband and I, to homeschool our 4 youngest because I did not want this nonsense of them having to wear masks all day long. My high schooler is here in the building, and he already told me that if a mask mandate was going to be put in place, masks were still going to be optional for him, and I commend him for standing up for that. I urge you to please let parents and families decide what is right for their children. You have stated you aren't qualified to make healthcare decisions for the children in this community. As parents, we are qualified to make healthcare decisions for our children. People are free to choose whether or not to wear masks. Let them choose. Thank you.
My name is Chris Jarman. I'm here to encourage you to continue to do what's best for the children of Maple School District by respecting the choices of parents with regard to the wearing of masks by their elementary age children. Let's start with the disease. Last week, I wrote the board a letter detailing the low risks to the children in this age group. I provided CDC data showing that our kids are at a higher risk of dying from accidents than they are of dying from this disease. Other data shows little risk to this children in this age group of severe disease requiring hospitalization. Local data confirms this. There is no data that shows that wearing of masks in this age group is effective in even lowering transmission rates. My question is, if kids in this age group are not at risk of dying or developing severe illness, and there's no data supporting masking as effective in reducing transmission, why would we choose to mandate masks? I think the answer is fear. For 20 months, we've been fed a steady diet of panic-inducing news about the deaths associated with this global pandemic. Last Friday night, at the varsity football game, there was a moment of silence in remembrance of 9/11. Flags were carried by members of the youth football program. The announcer did a fine job in framing the gravity of that day. He used the words freedom and liberty. I think about those words often. I believe strongly in those concepts. I know well the price that has been paid to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Pardon me. In January of 2005, in preparation for the first free Iraq elections, I spent my days securing polling places in the city of Fallujah, Iraq. Al-Qaeda threatened to disrupt the election by attacking these polling places, which were mostly schools. Iraqi parents feared sending their children to school. Al-Qaeda's threat wasn't intended to keep kids out of school. It was to create fear and shape an election outcome. I wondered about how my community would react if there was a threat to our children at school. Are we different? What would my neighbors do? Would we defend our way of life, our freedom to choose our own path, or would we succumb to fear in the name of safety? Government mandates during the past 20 months have shown me many are very much willing to trade liberty for perceived safety.
It's time. Sorry.
My name is Misty Hildreth, and I live in Lake Nebagamon. There is zero science to support masking to prevent the spread of any virus. Not one biased study exists, despite what people may say. Now, it's being said that cases are rising. Are these cases symptomatic? What cycle is the test being ran at? Because we know that running the test high gives false positives. There is no distinction in testing between the flu, COVID, or a variant. So how can we tell that it is actually a COVID case? And let's remember that a variant may be more transmissible, but not more severe. Masks are pure theater at this point. I also want to focus tonight on virus mitigation. I have a bachelor's in science. I have 8 years of nursing experience. I've been an athlete my entire life. And for the last 7 years, I've been a holistic health coach and educator. Health and wellness are my specialties. I am baffled as to why I have yet to hear any discussion on how to support the health and wellness of our teachers, students, and staff, or any strategy for improving ventilation systems in our schools. Obesity is one of the top risk factors for contracting COVID. It should come as no surprise to anyone that we have an obesity epidemic in this country, adults and children. Research shows that the obese have an increase in severity as well as complications with COVID. And with increasing levels of physical fitness, the probability of hospitalization and overall risk for the illness goes down. Why are we not discussing nutrition, exercise, healthy living, and adding more recess and PE, looking at the nutrition of school lunches, boosting our immune systems, and more? There are numerous directions that we can go, and have real lasting beneficial impacts, not just for teachers and students, but for the health of our community as well in general. Proper ventilation is one of the best ways to prevent the spread of a virus. Why are funds not being allocated for enhancing and improving ventilation at our schools? The Air Guardian system is proven to kill 99% of all COVID pathogens within 13 seconds, and it purifies from other viruses and bacteria as well. Why is this not being talked about, implemented? Why is the only discussion about masks, which are not even effective strategies? The virus is here to stay. You all should be thinking about innovative long-term solutions, not short-term
It's time,
band-aids.
thank you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Hi, I am Billy Van Ert, and I'm in the Hawthorne School. I live in Hawthorne. Okay, so I'm going to try to talk as fast as I can here. This is an NIOS-approved N95 particle respirator positive facial lock with magic art, and on the bottom it's got an asterisk that says fit test required per NIOSH. That's 95% protection against particulates. If you look at the back, which I'm sure nobody can see, but there's 8 big pictures with a bunch of stuff underneath it and a rigmarole to put this doggone thing on your face so that it protects you. You have to put it on, you've got to do all this stuff, and the fit tested means that they have to have somebody come and make sure there's no little teeny place here where anything's going to get in or out. The material itself is LPC tested, which determines the particulate filtration efficiency, which on this mask is 99.9%. This is used for surgeons who are going in, don't want to catch whatever the guy they're taking care of has, or vice versa. Cloth masks have been tested to be 97% particulates go in and out of it. Masks do nothing. They are like putting a chicken wire on a screen door and expecting that the mosquitoes are not going to get in and out while leaving all your windows open in your whole doggone house. There is you're talking about the CDC and specialists. There's a specialist, his name is Stephen Petty. He's an industrial hygienist, hazardous material expert. He says that because of the moist, warm conditions and accumulation of bacteria, fungi, which is mold, and viruses multiply and grow underneath your mask, which causes infections. One study showed that 384% more particulates, which is what we just said, goes through that mask compared to somebody standing next to them that doesn't have one on. Now, just to talk about what it does to your kids, there's 65 different research papers that I read. Here's what happens to your kids and everybody else. Breathing difficulties, increased heart rate, increased high blood pressure, headaches, dizziness, throat and nose irritations, along with skin irritations. Children's studies show that stress, anxiety, depression, fear, and reduced participation in impaired learning. And there's a study that says the disruption of verbal communication and nonverbal communication due to the loss of facial expression recognition causes insecurity and discouragement in your children. And this is what we're doing, putting masks on our kids. Now you're going to say, why are we doing this? Well, because we don't want our kids to die from COVID. But in England just recently, 469,982 children were tested that were positive for COVID, and 99.95% recovery rate. The only kids that died from that were kids who had extreme severe brain or nervous system disabilities. They found the same information about the Delta variant. So what I want to say in the end here is there's another study that says that children wearing masks block the foundation of human communication and exchange of emotions, and not only hinder learning, but disrupt children of positive effects, smiling, laughing, and emotional mimicking.
Thank you.
My name is Judith Cheney. I am from Rural Township. I was asked by somebody if I would give part of my time to read what they were not able to be here to say. Says, I am writing to the school board from both a parent and employee perspective to share my concern and frustration about this mask mandate situation being reapproached yet again within weeks of the new school year. I think it was so empowering and wonderful. Our school took a stance and didn't follow suit with so many schools by choosing to mask our children, or by choosing to make masks for our children and our staff optional. With a virus that has over a 99% survival rate if young and in good health. I agree with many other decisions that were made. This was a logical one. You went above and beyond, making accommodations for others who may or may not be comfortable with that option by giving them the choice to have their child wear a mask at school or giving the option to online school. I'm the parent of multiple children in the district, and I'm also in the inside situation as a staff member at NES that works directly with elementary-aged children. And I can tell you firsthand that this year, the majority of students, by a long haul, are unmasked, which tells me without a doubt that the consensus of most parents is to agree by not masking their children versus masking them. And number two, the important thing I wanted to mention is that most kids are not wearing the mask properly anyways. They are under their nose, under their chin, constantly being pulled at, and even being bit and sucked on. Last year, kids were constantly being redirected to wear them properly, which caused them to be touching them nonstop to readjust. When they took them off to eat or play, they were being laid on dirty surfaces such as the floor beside their desk, the tabletops, which were constantly being touched and walked on throughout the day. Think about the amount of germs on those surfaces alone, and the children picking the masks up and reapplying them to their face and breathing in them for several hours. Sounds even worse than not wearing one at all, doesn't it? The beauty of free choice is that people can make a decision to what best suits them and their child. It is downright frustrating to have to go through this battle again, and so soon, especially seeing how many children we have gained this year because of parents sending them here, specifically due to the choice we made to make masks optional. What a slap in the face it would be to go back to masks less than a month into the school year. Bottom line is the back and forth needs to stop. We have to wear masks, we don't have to wear masks. Get vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. Oops, I'm sorry, I know you're vaccinated, but you need to wear a mask anyways. COVID and other variants of the virus show no sign of stopping anytime soon. So we need to learn a new normal by finding a way to live not in fear or pass these fears on to our children. Instead, we could be educating them on the importance of good hygiene and proper hand washing, that when done correctly can have a huge effect on cutting down the spread of the illness and the germs. But above all else, they continue to let the people have the freedom to choose the decision that's best for their family. I agreed to read that letter because it very much mirrors what I, as a parent, am thinking. I have 5 children in the district, 2 in middle, 2 in elementary. This will affect 4 of those 5 kids because I have 1 in 6th grade. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the board and fellow parents. My name is Joshua Grimes from Hawthorne, father of 3 children who go to school here, along with myself and my brothers once long ago. Go Tigers. Today, I am here to vote for the no mask mandate, for as we all know, mandates are not law. Now to dive deep into the reason why you, not all of you, are urging to mask our children, even more so after already jumping through hoops last school year, we need to focus on COVID-19 itself, as I have done extensive research since its origin. Firstly, 4.5 million people have supposedly died from it worldwide. However, the last couple months, the CDC and WHO came forward and stated that the tests were up to 60% inaccurate. So let's take that false positive percentage and put it against the 4.5 million deaths, roughly 1.8 million deaths from COVID. But again, the CDC said only 5% was actually caused from C19. So do that math. Get it now? The others had underlying health conditions such as stage 4 cancer, already in hospice, etc. But you, not all of you, want our children to wear a mask, but not seatbelts in your buses, where there are 1.3 million people who die from car crashes each year. It's absolutely silly to wear a mask for viruses, as a Mayo doctor of 19 years said so frankly, it's like putting a chain link fence versus mosquitoes. The CDC states our children ages 1 through 19 have a 99.997% are surviving it, or a 0.00003% chance of dying from it, let alone us and teachers ages 20 through 49, a 99.98% survivability, or a 0.0002% death rate, a much astronomically smaller number than NASA's statistics of a person getting hit by an asteroid. Thank you for your time.
Set my timer here, so. Hi, my name's Amanda Carlson. I'm in the municipality of Hawthorne. I'm a parent of 2 children that attend Northwestern Elementary School. One is in 1st grade and the other's in 5th grade. Neither one of them can be vaccinated yet. Not only am I a parent of 2 children that go to school here, but I'm also a physician at Essentia Health in Duluth. And I can tell you from my perspective as somebody who's been treating and caring for COVID patients since the start of this pandemic, that it is very real and people are getting very sick from it. I do agree with the arguments that these are terrible, they suck. Children don't like them, you're having to redirect them to get them to wear them, and I appreciate the difficulties that come from that. I also appreciate the difficulties of not being able to recognize facial mannerisms and things that help our children develop and grow. However, in many of the arguments I've been listening to as I've been standing in line is that masks don't work. And I would argue against that. There's a reason as a physician that I wear these masks when I do surgical procedures. There's a reason as a physician I wear these masks when I take care of immunocompromised patients with cancer and other conditions that don't have the immune system to fight against illnesses. There's a reason I wear a mask. If I go to work and I have the sniffles, I don't want somebody to catch whatever cold I might have. So they do work. Last year, I took polls from many of my colleagues in the pediatric wing, both at St. Luke's and St. Mary's. We did not see flu, COVID, or influenza like we have in the past. So I would argue that anecdotal evidence of these not working is incorrect if you consider this. They do work to stop large droplet spread. You're right, they don't stop everything, but they do work to stop some of the spread of the virus. My children will be vaccinated when the time comes. I know not everybody's will be, and that's fine, that's their personal choice. I wanted to ask for consideration for at least looking at, as one of the board members said, to have a threshold of when you would pull the trigger on this. The facetious comment of 50% to me is like putting a seatbelt on after you've had a car accident. It's gonna do you no good. And the comment of, well, we're not here to parent or impose our will or opinion on the patient's or children. We put helmets on the kids that play football, right? There's certain things, if we know it's effective, we know it's helpful, we do recommend those things or mandate them. You don't play football without a helmet. I want consideration for if we reach a certain threshold. I would argue for about 20% that we revisit masking at least until the vaccinations are out. Appreciate all the time. I appreciate the passion I'm seeing in all of the people who are here. It's obvious that we love and care for our children in our community, and I think that's very evident in both sides of this argument, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am a student of Northwestern. I'm in 5th grade, and I'm letting you know I am in favor of having a choice to wear a face mask because it is distracting to me while I'm doing my work. Also, it is frustrating to me when someone tells me to put on my face masks. I am not scared to get COVID-19 because I have had it before, and it took 2 hours for me to get better. When I have gym, we run a lot, and we have to have a face mask on. I cannot breathe. And so far, every time I have gotten on the bus, nobody has worn a face mask. Overall, I support the people that want to wear a face mask, but they will not be telling me that I need a face mask because I'm not afraid of COVID-19. And also, I think last year the teachers thought more about face masks than teaching.
That's going to be a pretty tough act to follow. 8 hours ago, I was in Canada running a business that essentially I've been kept from for the last 2 years. And I don't say that for pity. I don't say that because I want anybody to feel bad for me. I say that because you all up there are making decisions that impact our lives. I'm here now because this motion was brought back up before the school board. So don't take that responsibility lightly. Second, I want to apologize. I want to apologize to the school board, and I want to apologize to Dr. Croney, for you have been the subject of over 300 emails from a select few individuals that do not represent the parent community. I can promise you that. And the parents have spoken. If we wanted our kids to go to school with face masks on, how many up on this table up here in the board have gone to the schools and know how many students are entering the schools with face masks on right now? It's a very small percentage. Translation, the parents have spoken. The parents have embraced personal responsibility. We're not in the medical field. I'm not worried about transferring anything to a cancer patient. I'm worried about being a parent, embracing personal responsibility, and I will bear the burden. As you heard from Carmen, she had COVID. She was doing cartwheels in the hayfield during quarantine. And lastly, I have a very special son. He's considered high risk by the medical community. My wife, my family, myself, were not once
want this community to change and put face masks on because of Caleb. Okay? So with that, I'll turn it over to the next person.
Hi, my name is Amy Glonick. I'm from Poplar. I have 2 children at the Northwestern Elementary School. This is my 3rd time I've approached the board in the last 10 months. I've expressed my support for in-person learning, eliminating quarantines for healthy people who have had close contact, and for making masks optional. I still stand firm on each of those issues today. I was proud of the board when the mask mandate was dropped in June, even though I had expressed my disappointment for how long it took to reevaluate that policy. I was hoping the board would have used the end of the school year to experiment without masks and to have that data for the decisions that would be made for this school year. However, we were a few weeks into summer school, which allowed a trial run without masks for the remainder of those sessions. It was successful and no cases were reported to the parents. I was thrilled in August when the board voted to make masks optional for all students and staff by giving the right back to the parents to allow us to decide what's best for our children's health, mental health, and ability to learn more effectively and efficiently. I finally felt as if I was done co-parenting with the school board. Today, though, I stand here a bit confused. My 4th grader was in school for 3 days and my kindergarten for 1 when it was brought to my attention that a board member would like to reevaluate the policy for 4K through 6th grade. Did something happen that I'm not aware of? Adam has pointed out time after time last year that the board was being very inconsistent on policies it was putting into place. This revised policy seems inconsistent to what happened when we went optional masks in summer school. I don't want to spend any of my time going through all the negative issues that wearing masks enables in my children and many others, because I've done that in the past. When you decided to make masks optional 1 month ago, you created a win-win situation for everyone. Parents were allowed the choice. We were moving forward as a district in a positive direction. We had families coming to our school district from surrounding schools to join what they saw as an opportunity for their children to learn in an environment that would be best for them. As a parent of a child who wants the same, I welcome every one of those children into our district. I give those parents credit for making sacrifices and for their children to be able to thrive. There is only 1 or 2 students wearing masks in each classroom. I validated that with my children, watching students come in and out of the school, and even one of the higher staff members at the elementary school. The parents and staff clearly agree with your policy that you put into place, and I will be grateful if it remains. I'd also, if I'm not out of time, I'd like to mention that nobody here has brought up virtual learning at this point on the board or in the comments. I think a parent can choose when they feel that they need to put a mask on or take their child out. If you communicate to us what's going on in the schools, we can decide. If there's 5 children in kindergarten that have a positive case, and I'm not going to pull out an 8th grade student because of that. Thank you.
The kids wanted to tell you that their head hurts when they wear a mask. They can't breathe. They don't like them. They think they're dumb on the buses.
Could you
that
give
it's-
us your name and municipality,
Oh,
please?
sorry. Well, they're the Mess and Magic crew, and they're in the Wentworth and the Maple area. I'm Jennifer, and we're in the Wentworth.
Thank you.
And yeah, they wanted you to know that. Also, I just want to say, as for barriers, you said like maybe more barriers or whatever. I don't think the district needs to waste any more money on things that, like that. You have the barrier of the mask. It's your choice, wear a mask or don't. That's a barrier for you. As for our kids, their body, their choice. Let them, we talk about that all the time. And I think pretty much everything else I had to say, mostly everybody else covered. Thanks, guys.
I'm Laura Egley, I'm from Brule. I'm just wondering why we're talking about a mask mandate for 6th grade and under instead of just for a certain classroom. if there are a lot of people out in one classroom, why can't we just stick to mask mandating for the one classroom instead of making it a broad one-size-fits-all?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Downs. I am a resident of Superior. We have open enrolled 3 of our children in the elementary school here. First and foremost, thank you to all the board members for your dedication, passion, and time. I'm here in support of optional masks, regardless of the COVID-19 vaccine status. The primary question, how do we keep kids safe? According to the CDC, the leading causes of death between the ages of 5 to 14 are accidents, suicide, and cancer. COVID-19 is not listed. Based on the CDC, there's a 99.997% chance of surviving COVID between the ages of 0 to 19, which is transferable when considering we've had 3 children die from COVID in the entire state of Wisconsin. The data from the 2018 to 2019 flu season had more childhood flu deaths than total COVID deaths over the past year and a half. How are we going to ever justify unmasking children if the flu is more deadly than COVID? This data alone supports optional mask use. With the millions of dollars spent on marketing the COVID vaccine, it's shocking that there hasn't been an equal amount of money allocated towards studying the effectiveness of masks in an uncontrolled environment, like a school setting. The CDC's blanket recommendation to mask children is unsupported by their own data. The CDC is not a governing agency. They make suggestions, not the rules. If the focus is what's doing in the best interest of our students' health and safety, please start with the top of the CDC's childhood mortality chart. What their own data actually supports is that we should be doing mandating and implementing stress coping mechanisms to help minimize the risk of suicide in our youth. To end, here's what we've heard throughout the past year. Masks don't work. Masks work. 2 masks work even better. The vaccine works. The vaccine doesn't work, so wear a mask. In which the back of this box that we're wanting our children to wear, children's face masks, under cautions, number 4, says not intended for antiviral protection or related uses or infection prevention. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie Johnson, and I'm a resident of Lake Nebagamon. I've got 3 young sons that are at Northwestern Elementary School. Our family also had COVID, and like Carmen, it was Lord of the Flies in my basement because I didn't know what was going on there while they were quarantined. Running around, jumping, one had a slight cough, one had a stuffy nose, and that was the extent of it. Last week, there were 38 cases of COVID in Douglas County, which is down from the previous week. And like Adam had stated, over 44,000 residents in Douglas County, that's 99.99% that were not positive for COVID. Please keep in mind, during the real surge, there was 1,256 positive cases in the month of November. That is a decrease of 90% of positive cases where we sit now, which is fantastic and should allow you all to feel comfortable supporting optional masks versus mandates. It's common sense. If someone wants to mask their child because they feel that the mask is effective, then they have the freedom to do that. For those who prefer not to, we don't need to. That's the beauty of our country's freedom of choice. I then researched the National School Board Association that reads, the school board represents the community's voice in a public education. Your paid positions are elected by the people. A majority of the people are telling you, no, now they're screaming from the rooftops to keep masks optional for our students and our staff of Maple School District. Don't flip-flop. Stand your ground as it is supported by an overwhelming majority of patients. No strong-arming, just do what's right for your own family. Give parents the choice. Don't like it? There's other options for the minority of patients who want to have mandatory masks, such as virtual learning, School District of Superior, homeschool, or mandate your own child to wear a mask, but you don't get to mandate mine. Look at the amount of families that joined our school district this year because of our decision to allow freedom to empower our parents and guardians to do what's right for their child instead of force. The majority of people who who you represent are telling you to keep masks optional. Listen to them. Also, please keep in mind that kids are not wearing N95s or surgical masks. And all due respect to the physician, I guarantee you she is walking into that hospital with a surgical mask or an N95. These kids are wearing dirty, porous pieces of cloth hanging below their nose, chewing on it, playing with it, and it's not protecting anyone, including themselves or others. These kids are going into stores, gas stations, birthday parties, sleepovers, sporting events, unmasked because it's optional. But then they have to come to school and wear a mask for 7-8 hours to not spread COVID. This is where that common sense piece applies, along with critical thinking skills. It doesn't make sense. There was 80,000 unmasked people at Camp Ramdell at a recent college football game in Madison. It's surreal that parents have to fight so hard for optional masks for children spread out in classrooms, like you talked about, the hand washing, Lysol wipes. We have to fight so hard in rural Wisconsin, in the middle of the woods. This is not about control in your position of.
Time.
Hi, Jeremiah Glonick, live in Poplar, Wisconsin. 2 kids in NES. Tonight I was going to talk about how masks are causing more damage to students and staff. Is this working?
Yes.
Than they actually are helping them in day-to-day lives. But I trust you did your research yourself when you voted to vote mask optional last month. First, I would like to thank you for that decision. I would support you to make that same decision tonight. Board members are elected to represent our community. And on the issue, it could not be more obvious that your decision to have mask optional clearly represents the majority of the community. Watching the students being dropped off and picked up each day, I can see that the vast majority of students and staff are not wearing masks. It is very consistent to what I've noticed at stores, concerts, sporting events, and other social events. The only solution to make it fair to students and staff is to keep masks optional. I urge you to stand by your decision. Thank you.
My name is Brecklin, and I live in Maple, Wisconsin. I don't really like masks because I can't breathe in them, and I really don't like them.
Hi, I'm Heather Miller. Most of you know me. I'm from Blue Iron River area. I'm up here because I'm a nurse. I tend to agree with Dr. Carlson 100%. I know that you guys mentioned in the beginning that you're not medical professionals, so I just encourage you to listen to the medical professionals. Your district nurse, we have a district nurse for a reason. She tells you what she thinks based on medical. So, I'm not, if somebody asked me to teach math, I would know nothing about it. I wouldn't pretend to. I wouldn't try to persuade you that I know it. You have to listen to medical people. Granted, I know there's both sides to it. Totally okay with everybody's opinion. I get a little irritated when people think that COVID is not, people don't get sick or die, because they do. I've taken care of patients that have died. So I encourage everybody to think, if everybody thinks that COVID is not something that people die from, I encourage you to look at it. Talk to somebody who had a family member that died of COVID, because it's true, it's real. Now, do I think our young people are dying of COVID? No. So I think there's a 2 different street here. First off, 12 years and under cannot get vaccinated, period, right now. So we are able, though, however, to help protect them and those around them. So the masks aren't just for the kids. The masks are also to help stop the spread of COVID. So we can go back and forth with masks again, but there's a reason last year COVID was less in the school. There's a reason why the influenza was not around very much. There's a reason why there wasn't a lot of viruses, period. Why? This simple thing right here, mask. So we can go back and forth talking about it doesn't help, it doesn't prevent anything. A simple mask prevents droplets, period. Going back and forth with N95s, physicians do not wear an N95 mask in the hospital unless they're dealing with COVID patients. Medical and clinics have to wear a mask because they're medicine. We're medicine. We're not political, we're medicine. So if I can prevent one person from getting sick, I'm gonna do that. My opinion, again, I understand there's all these opinions. I'm cool with that. I'm not going to push my opinions on others. However, I do recommend as a medical professional, I've been an RN for 21 years, worked at St. Luke's for 20. So again, if I said I don't believe in masks or medicine, I would be a hypocrite. There's a reason I went into medicine. It's science. There's nothing political about it. Our jobs here, also, I get that masks suck. My daughter's in second grade. She hates wearing a mask. Obviously, as a mother, I try to educate them because, again, educating on science, not political. Nothing's political. It shouldn't be political. I don't know why it turned into politics. Science and politics are not the same.
Time.
Oh, perfect. Anyways, I just recommend masks for the young kids that can't get vaccinated.
My name is Sandy Johnson, and I'm a grandma to 4 students in the district. And I appreciate you guys and the work that you're doing and handling all this and your patience. I just applaud you. I just have one suggestion after hearing all this. This is my first time being exposed to the public forum and all the information, and you all have probably been inundated with it. My suggestion is, rather than issue a mandate when a threshold is met, why don't you issue information to parents so they can make a more informed choice? Maybe if a mandate goes up, maybe if the numbers go up, more parents might think, oh, maybe I will have them wear a mask. But just give the parents the option to make an informed choice rather than mandate to them. Thank you, guys.
My name is Julia Plukoski, and I have 4 kids in the district. And I have written to you several times since COVID has started, and all I'm asking you to do tonight is to stick with your vote that says masks are optional and give the choice back to the parents.
Hello, my name is Leanne Weezy. I live in Brule, Wisconsin. And I'm an instructor at UWS. We just got back our mask mandates in September, which I was very upset about because I don't want to be wearing this thing. It's awful. I feel hot. I feel like my glasses are fogging up constantly. But at the same time, I'm not worried about my health. I'm worried about the health of those around me. And that leads me to, I taught in the public schools for 13 years. 10 of those years were for this district. And there are many parents who are fantastic and who make really good, responsible choices for their children, keep them home when they're sick, send appropriate gear for them to wear. I believe someone mentioned something about wearing a particular type of boots. But there are a percentage of parents who don't send boots for their children or clothing or have the proper medical care and send them to school when they are sick. And so unfortunately, we don't have control over those parents. The only thing that we have control over are the stipulations that we put in place. So for example, if we have a threshold, we have mandates for millions of things in a school district because we are a public school. We're taking federal funds to operate. We have to put things in place that are going to keep all of our children safe, not just those that have parents who make the right choices for them. For those parents who don't, or excuse me, for those children who don't have parents who make the right choices for them. Is that fair to the rest of us? Probably not, but it's life and it's reality. And so we need to make sure that all of our children are safe. Kids 6th grade and under cannot get vaccinated. They don't have the option. Parents don't have that option of offering that to them. And so I feel as though as a public school, it is our job to set parameters that keep people safe. Thank you.
My name is Christy Essen. I live in Maple, Wisconsin. I am the acting PTA president for the Northwestern Elementary School. I would like to start by thanking all of you for the choice, letting our children, our parents have the choice back. Last year, I was one of the very, very few parents allowed into the building. And I would like to say that there was a very somber nature to the entire school. There were very few smiles, there were very few activities that got the kids engaged with each other. I've spent the last 5 days out of 10 wearing this hot, heavy suit to greet our kids, not only at the door, but at the classrooms, in their classrooms, high-fiving them. And I would like everybody in this room to know that the amount of smiles that it's brought back to our classrooms, the excitement that it's brought back to our classrooms, being able to choose whether or not to wear these masks, it's going a long ways towards covering for last year's somber attitude and somber school situation. I urge you to keep us on choice. I'm going to go get out of my sweaty suit now. Thank you for your time.
My name is Connie Evans. I have a 5th grade student. I'm in Hawthorne Township. And I would just like to say, to keep masks optional is the best thing for the kids and for the community and for the school that you all call your community. No kid likes to be in a mask, but no parents like to send the kids to school with masks, and parents don't like that opportunity taken away. I feel if a mandate goes through, you will find more people pulling their kids out of school, and we would be one family that does that. Shouldn't the parents do what's best for their children, whether it is to pull them out of school or whether it is to pull them out of school because they have a health issue or because the parents don't agree with the decisions made? Last year, the kids spent more time at home doing nothing than getting an education. I don't want to see that opportunity missed again for the children. If it comes down to wearing a mask or not, I really believe you're going to find families doing just that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda Liebert. We're from Hawthorne. And again, like everyone else, I want to thank you guys for your time and all the dedication that goes into putting our kids first. And I don't want to echo every single thing most people have said, but when, like some of you have said, you can find an article to support or go against your view. I did send you guys, it was late, I apologize, but 33 evidence-based studies to support your current vote. And I just ask that you continue to put the kids' mental health first and look at the actual science. Don't make your decisions based on fear, and continue with the vote to leave all of this in the parents' hands where it needs to be. Thank you.
Hello, Becky Landwehr from Poplar. I'm going to try to do this without getting emotional. There are definite ramifications from COVID. It's not our children getting sick. It's parents falling off the wagon. It's depression, it's suicide. There are very, very real ramifications of COVID right now. And I think as a community, regardless of whether masks work or not, in August, when you made your decision, parents had the opportunity to make the decision that was best for their kids based on what you decided. You decided masks optional, and parents from there, some moved into our district. Some open enrolled in, some open enrolled out. Some of us threw our masks away, and some of us have continued to send our kids in masks. But we all got to make a decision for our children's education that was best for them. If you change your decision now, will you give all of us the opportunity to change ours? Do we get to go back? I can't stress enough how anxiety-inducing these meetings are. This is not as simple as empowering each other on the board. This is a community falling apart, and we desperately want to come back together.
My name is Bethany Gant from Poplar, formerly Bethany Nelson, so I see some teachers and coaches from the past up there. And I want to say that I know a lot of you guys personally, and a lot of people here personally, and I think it's important that we keep that in mind, that we're all people, and there is a lot of tension in this topic, and for me personally, I've had to really wrestle with where I stand, because I do very strongly value human life. And for me personally, I had COVID, my family had COVID in November, and I still cannot taste or smell. And that is something that I have had to come to grips with, that there are no answers, and this may be a lifelong thing that I have, and I've had to wrestle through that. I'm also concerned about my son, who is 5 years old, and we have made the choice to put him in 4K again instead of moving him to kindergarten, for many reasons, and none of them are academic. In large part, it's social. He's very shy. He has a hard time interacting socially with people, and we believe strongly he's going to be fine. He's going to grow up. It's going to be okay, but he has a hard time when he has to wear a mask, interacting with people. And I am concerned about the lifelong effects that this may have on him. And again, I understand there's lifelong effects that I may have on the other side, but I would strongly encourage the board to stay with their original vote as well. Thank you.
All right, it looks like everyone has had their opportunity to speak. I'd just like to thank everyone. I know you're all speaking from that place in your heart. That goes for your own children and your own families. So whatever side you're on, I just appreciate that you have shared with us your thoughts and your concerns. Now, I'd ask the board if they would like any more discussion or if we're ready for a motion.
If nobody has anything, do you have something to say?
I just want to say that I think the board has a goal of doing what's best for kids, and I believe that's the community's goal as well. It seems the conflict comes in when we differ on how we get to that goal. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, that this has been a very, from the meetings that I've seen, we've all seen them online, you've all been very respectful, and we may not all agree, But I think what we can agree on is our choices that we are making here today are how we feel is what's best. There's a lot of information out there, like we were discussing, some of you have made a point too, where you can find an article online that's going to tell you one thing, and then you're going to find the complete opposite. So the volume of information and disinformation that you have to cipher through is overwhelming for anybody. Yeah, that's about it.
I'd just like to add that I appreciate the respectfulness that was shown in this auditorium tonight to each other. You could be a model for the country. All right, back to the business.
I guess I'll make a motion to stay with the 2021-22 reopening and continuity of education plan that was enacted in August.
And I
Which
will second that.
includes face masks.
Which, just as it was written, includes face masks as optional at this point.
Do we have a second?
I have seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Can you do a roll call?
Hearing none, we will take a roll call vote. We have a motion and a second to continue with our reopening and continuity of education plan for the 2021-22 school year, which includes masks optional. All right. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Landwehr?
Yes.
Ms. Sari?
Yes.
Mrs. Livingston Matherly?
No.
Mr. Granlund?
Yes.
Mrs. Olson?
No.
And I just want to say that I think the effects of wearing masks for young children for 7, 8, 9 hours a day as it pertains to our district, those effects are not insignificant. I truly believe that for some, it affects them physically, emotionally, socially, and educationally too. I also think for some, it makes them fearful for themselves, for their friends. And I vote yes. Moving on to our administrative report for tonight, communications received. Dr. Crony.
WIAA Bulletin, Issue 1, August 2021, was in your packet. A correspondence from Jill Underly, Wisconsin School Superintendent, with notification that the district was recommended for funding in the amount of $75,000 for a school-based mental health services grant. A 2021 report from North Lakes Community Clinic, who provides services for the school-based behavioral health program. And a thank you for the memorials received by the families. I'd like to read School District of Maple Board, Administration and Staff. We thank you for your sympathy and kindness, knowing we had the support of so many during our time of sorrow, helped us through some difficult days. Stacy Fidali, family of Karen Fidali. Thank you for your sympathy and kindness, Merrill Erickson and family, on behalf of Amy Erickson. And gratefully acknowledging and thanking you for your kind expression of sympathy, Jim Bishanich, and family. Budget hearing.
Okay, moving on to budget hearing and annual meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, September 27th at 7 p.m. Dr. Crony.
WASB Fall Region 1 meeting and election, Wednesday, September 29th in Spooner. Information is in your packets. Please let Peggy know by the end of today's meeting if you're going to attend. Maintenance update.
Maintenance update. I think Paul has some things to show us with our project, for one thing.
No. Okay, I passed out a copy of what we have, what comes to the our biweekly construction meetings from the construction manager, give you an idea of the contractors on there and I kind of an idea of what we're looking at for completion schedule. We would certainly plan on trying to be done here right around the end of September, first part of October. One of the biggest issues with taking out that stage was all the concrete in it. It's unbelievable how much it was almost over-engineered. So they spent days cutting out concrete and taking them right out of the stage area with a small skid steer. There were 20 yards of sand in it. That was all removed. We piled that up over near the area where the old sewage ponds were. Could be used someday for a slab or for any other reason. It's good sand. The floor was removed. They're working on the final grade and compaction and expect to start footings and the block masonry this week. So we're down to floor level grade right now, and some of the worst of the work is over for that part of it. The plumbing rough ends have been made out into the hallways. Probably the only thing we're looking at that's going to be delay is because, like a lot of other things these days that you're not getting on time, are the doors for the classroom. So everything if that was the last thing, we could use temporary doors until we got the originals. Things like the countertop color design, the cabinets, all that stuff's all been picked out. Brad assisted us with that. So it's going reasonably well. I don't know if we mentioned this before, the stage lights that were in there were salvaged. They were good. They were much better than what was at the middle school. They're being installed at the middle school. So that's pretty much it for that project. There's one other report that I was asked to give. It's regarding the ad hoc meeting. We just had a second one with Town of Maple and the Village of Poplar on the issue of groups of buses, sometimes 17 at a time, traveling across the Village of Poplar and Mapletown roads, which really weren't designed to maintain for that level of use. And that was a lot of discussion on that. Originally, the route change was made. This was last spring. We did this for about 3 months, where we attempted to stay off Highway 2 for safety reasons. Anybody who's been along there when buses are pulling out on Highway 2, it is a situation. So, but the Town of Maple since then has closed what's called the Gone Short Loop Road. That was part of that reroute due to a culvert replacement. So we resumed using the afternoon routing onto Highway 2, and we're not going to consider using the loop road again. It's too narrow. It was designed under old specifications that just simply wouldn't hold up to that kind of traffic. Town of Poplar had the Village of Poplar had the same issue because we had to pull out onto their road to get down to the loop road. So unfortunately, they will never get the funding to upgrade those roads to where they would handle that kind of traffic. It's just not going to happen. The DOT did recently install 45-mile-an-hour speed signs on Highway 2. I don't know if you've seen those or not. That was at the DOT's cost. Flashing light beacons could be added, but that would not be paid for by the DOT. They're very expensive. I believe they're $10,000 a piece. I don't think that's in our budget right now, and certainly not in any money from the town or the village's budget to help that out. I mean, that could be looked at in future years, but right now I don't think we're going to look at that, or we're going to be able to do that. So we're going to continue looking at the routing. There was a lot of discussion this morning at the admin team meeting there's really no clear, easy solutions to not, not going on Highway 2. It would affect all the schools' minutes of instruction, the bell times, teachers' length of day, the student pickup and ride times, parent congestion, and the list kind of goes on and on. So we're pretty much going to go back to what we were doing last winter. Dr. Croney offered to lend assistance to the town and the village if they wanted to write a grant. Grants, however, that they would write have to be for something that's done on their property, and the district can only write grants for safety enhancements on our property. Mike Granlund, board member, agreed to represent the district on any DOT meetings and town association meetings, correct?
Yes, the Village of Poplar and the Town of Maple and myself are going to be meeting and maybe meeting with the state.
We did try to emphasize, at least at the end of the meeting, that in the future, we'll try to be more sensitive to whatever effects these routing changes might make if we're even able to do them, so. And there's another meeting scheduled for Thursday, November 11th at the district office conference room.
Thank you.
Want me to go on for donations?
Donations?
All right. Young Athletes Foundation, Grandma's Marathon, donated 8 shoe vouchers to the cross-country team. Each voucher is valued at $85. The foundation also donated socks to all the runners. We received a donation of $500 from Elizabeth and John Michael Fritchie for the Angel Fund, and Mission Covenant Church in Poplar donated an abundance of school supplies to all 4 schools in the district, including paper supplies, backpacks, pens, pencils, folders, and so much more. Jay Johnson of Poplar donated a box of 3-ring binders and backpacks for students. Mark Carlson, owner of Midwest Golf Cars, donated a golf cart for Northwestern Middle School student need for the use of this year.
Nice, yeah, very nice, thank you. WASB correspondence and legislative update, Mrs. Olson.
Not too much this month. WASB leader John Ashley calls for civility at board meetings due to recent reports of personal threats and harassments directed at school board members across the state, and you pretty much covered that in your opening. And then Assembly Bill 466, which I reported on a couple months ago, that is the overhaul of the reading instruction. They are having, there'll be a hearing overhaul tomorrow on, or hearing on tomorrow, Tuesday, September 14th at 10 o'clock. Or they'll start discussing that.
Thank you. CISA 12, Ms. Sari.
Right now, I don't have anything from CISA. My meetings are the third Tuesday, so I have that next week.
All right, thank you. We have reports from all of our schools, as well as our athletic and activities director, which you all have in your packets. And after a very long wait, we get to hear from our new student reps, not Aaron, Abby and Thomas. It says Aaron.
Hi, okay, so I'm going to be, my name's Abby, and I'm going to be doing the sports, and Thomas is going to be doing like the art side of things. So first, as we're all just coming into high school, we're starting to get into the full swing of everything. Football has played a couple of scrimmages, and they had a huge win against Rice Lake and a total of 3 conference games, which they have won. They are having a game this Friday with Cameron, and they have a homecoming game coming up. Next is volleyball. Volleyball has gone to Onalaska and competed in that tournament. They've only played 1 conference game so far, and they have a conference game tomorrow night. Cross country has their home meet coming up, They also are going to the Roy Griak at the U of M. That will be the Friday of homecoming. Girls golf also just had their home meet. They are doing really well. Cheerleading, they are working super hard on getting that dance ready with the football players for homecoming week. Also, the student body is really getting excited for homecoming, and they're ready for hopefully a normal homecoming week, including Macho Man volleyball and powder puff, and hopefully the main event, the dance. And yeah, that's my section.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Shamla. I have a brief summary for you guys tonight of some of the non-athletic activities that are going on in our school. The Northwestern Band has assembled for the year. We played at halftime, or excuse me, we played pep band for the last home football game last Friday, and we plan on playing during halftime on September 24th, homecoming, and then again at the Bayfield Apple Festival Parade on October 3rd. The Northwestern Choir has started practicing their concert music and have been conducting fundraisers for their tour at the end of the 2021 school year to New York, which include 50-50 raffle sales at football games, and they're going to have a stand at the Apple Festival Parade. Drama is competing in a sub-district competition on October 6th and a district competition on October 21st here at Northwestern. Sometime in November, doesn't seem to be scheduled yet. They're having a regional competition at UW Eau Claire, and then the state competition November 18th to the 20th at UW Stout. We recently had our clubs and activities fair here at the high school. I was among the members who came up and introduced a couple of the clubs, and students had the opportunity to sign up for any clubs during that time. We had good participation in that. The building construction class has started on our house for this year. We've been working on the floor systems and hope to, the wall systems are going to be arriving this Wednesday of this week, and we hope to be ready to start working on those by the time those pieces arrive. And Tiger Manufacturing has assembled for this year. We've assigned elected president and vice president roles, and are taking orders from the community at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments from the audience. The comments from the public agenda item is not the forum for School District of Maple personnel concerns. The public needs to refrain from the use of names or specific positions when used in a negative manner. If you have concerns that involve personnel or staff members, please contact the building principal or the superintendent. Since we opened up comments regarding the continuity of education plan and the wearing of face masks, no further comments will be entertained on this subject. If anyone else has a comment on another subject, please speak now. All right, seeing none. Consideration to move to an executive session is necessary for those items exempted under open sessions according to the Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, parentheses 1F. Included under this item is a request for early entrance to 4-year-old kindergarten. We need a motion, a second, and a roll call.
Can I make a quick comment?
To close session?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to move to closed session. All right, Mr. Johnson. Okay, but it's a roll call vote now to move to closed session. Mr. Landwehr.
I was going to say before Gail said, and I'm not sure if I can do this, I'm sorry, the annual budget hearing, can that be defined for the public? It's a public meeting. It's not a school board meeting, so anybody can attend, anybody can vote. I don't think anybody really knows that. We always get like 3 people. Just saying.
And we're similar to every other district
Yeah,
in the state.
okay. Well, I just want to make sure that they know it's not, your voice can actually be heard at that meeting. So, and I vote yes to go into
Okay.
executive session.
Ms. Sari?
Yes.
Mrs. Livingston Matherly?
Yes.
Mr. Granlund?
Yes.
Mrs. Olson? Yes. All right. We will now move to closed session. Are we good to go? Okay. We are reconvening to open session for possible action on an early entrance request for a 4-year-old kindergarten. All right.
The parents do understand, that after a month, if the child hasn't progressed, that he could return back next year as a 4K, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Brad gave the thumbs up.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Yes, yes, I mentioned that, because they're wondering if the parent was sitting out there waiting to come in. I said, no, Brad said he'll call the parent with the board's decision after it's made in open session.
Make a motion that we approve that request.
Entrance.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request for early entrance to the 4K on Northwestern Elementary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. And we are ready for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
You're bold.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Meeting.